Good day, everyone. BK Voiceover here, and welcome to episode 2 of my 2022 Offseason Scenario Series. So today, we're going to be dedicating our discussion to a less fun topic among offseason discussion points, or maybe a positive one for some of you. Yes, we are going to be looking at 5 cut candidates that I think the Seahawks should move on from this offseason, or at the very least, restructure their deals and bring them back at a much lower cap hit than what they're at currently. Again, this could be due to bloated contract values, subpar play, wanting to get younger at a specific position, a combination of all three, or maybe something more. Now, I will preface this by saying that wanting to cut a player does not necessarily mean that I think that they're bad, or that I think negatively of them on the field or off. I'm just looking at this from a fan perspective and speculating on where we can best use the cap resources we have available. And you might recall from my first video, if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you go back and start there, because this will make a lot more sense. You might recall that I stated a couple of positions that didn't look like areas of great need at the moment may start to become more noticeable later on in this series, and this is where that starts. Like I said before in that first video, I stated that per Over the Cap and Spotrac, we're sitting at approximately $37 million in cap space for next season, which is 8th most in the NFL and the most cap space of any team in the NFC. And while that might sound like a lot of cap space in the NFL, I think you'll be surprised by how quickly that cap space dries up following Super Bowl weekend, because I think it's about 1 week after the Super Bowl, teams can start negotiating with and signing their pending free agents, and the Seahawks have a lot of those. At this moment, we are sitting at, according to Spotrac, 16 unrestricted free agents, 3 restricted free agents, and 7 exclusive rights free agents, which I will be getting to those in next week's video, so be sure to stay tuned for more of this content. And Pete Carroll even said following the end of the regular season that a lot of available cap space is going to be going to signing their own free agents. So if there comes to be a time this offseason where a big acquisition can be made, this is where I think you may start to see some of those cuts made. As always, if you like the content and want to see more, be sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit that bell icon so you're notified whenever I post a new video or when I go live. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And to start things off, the first player on the chopping block is none other than defensive end Lj Collier. And if you've been following the team, even if it's just been for the past few years, I don't think this one needs a whole lot of explanation. So a little background, he was drafted in the first round, 29th overall in 2019 out of TCU. He has not lived up to his first round pedigree at all. In his first season, he finished with a total of 3 tackles. 3 tackles, like maybe that might be a good stat line, or not even a good stat line, a decent stat line for like a single game, maybe. Not the entire first season of a first round draft pick. But yeah, even when you look at his career stats, he had a decent uptick of production in 2020 with 3 sacks. 22 combined tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 7 QB hits in playing all 16 games. But he has not lived up to the height that we desperately needed. So now let's take a look at what sort of cap savings we could see with Lj Collier. So Lj Collier at this moment is set to make, let's see if I can find his name. Right there, he's set to make $3,447,843 against the cap next season. And since this is technically the last year of his deal, cutting him pre or post June 1st does not change the amount that he's owed. So no matter what, if you cut him this offseason, he's going to cost you $2,461,520 in dead cap, but he will also open up about $1 million in cap savings, which isn't a lot, but when you get to end of the offseason, that might be all you need to get maybe a bigger name player that you can grab for pretty cheap. So yeah,
Maybe you also trade him for a 6th or 7th round pick. I think he's at least worth that, and I'm pretty sure they tried. They should, if they didn't, they should have tried trading him at the trade deadline. But I think they just didn't get anybody that was going to give them what they wanted. So that's number 1 off the board. And number 2 on our list is defensive end Benson Mayo. So a little bit of history behind Mayo. Mayo was picked up as an undrafted free agent by the Seahawks all the way back in 2013, where he won a Super Bowl his first season in the NFL. Pretty stoked for him on that. And just going by the fact that he's an undrafted free agent, he has already massively exceeded his expectations. He's had a 9-year career so far in the NFL with like 4 different teams. 4 different teams. He had 3 seasons with Seattle, 3 seasons with Oakland, 2 seasons with Dallas, and a season with Arizona. And he's racked up a really decent career as like a rotational edge rusher. Over 9 seasons, he's played in 115 games, starting 31 of those games, 185 total tackles, 44 tackles for loss, 52 QB hits, 27 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, and 8 pass deflections. So why are we talking about him as a cut candidate? Well, you'll remember he signed a 1-year deal with the Seahawks back in 2020 where he had a pretty decent season. 6 sacks, 24 combined tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 9 QB hits, 3 pass deflections, and 2 forced fumbles. Really, really solid year for an older veteran rotational defensive end. And that was good enough for them to sign him to a 2-year deal in the 2021 offseason. And unfortunately, his performance in 2021 did not impress as much. Despite playing in 15 games, he only missed 2 games due to, I think he had like an injury towards the end of the season. He recorded 30 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 QB hits, and 1 sack. Granted, this may have been less to do with his production, with his ability, and more to do with him kind of being played more as a Sam linebacker than a Leo, which is where I think he seems more comfortable with. Which is another reason why he shouldn't be brought back at the price he's currently at. He is not better than either Daryl Taylor or Carlos Dunlap, who I think you absolutely bring both. Well, obviously Daryl Taylor's on his rookie season, and he just had a breakout in his 2nd year after missing his entire rookie season with that leg injury. But anyway, I think it's very easy to get better at that position in the draft and in the offseason, and I think defensive end is a place that they are going to really look to hit a home run this offseason. Now, if we go and take a look at his current cap hit for this next season, I know he's like somewhere towards the top. There he is, Benson Mayo. He's set to make $3,760,000 against the cap. So, if you cut him pre-June 1st, you would be saving $2,250,000. Or not saving, that would be your dead cap hit that you'd be taking on. And you'd save about $1.5 million. That's some decent savings. Plus, I think that it's, like I said earlier, it's a place that they're going to target more in the draft. And I think you have better Sam talent that you could find for cheaper. If you cut him post June 1st, he only records $750,000 in dead cap this season and opens up $3 million in cap savings. So, while I don't think that Benson Mayo is going to be a cut that you'll see in the next, in the early parts of the offseason, I think he's going to be a later cut once we get past the draft and start getting towards training camp. So, another potential option to get better at the defensive end position, which is one of the positions that I think this team has really been struggling with the past few seasons. Next up at number 3 is going to be a player that it makes me sad even having to talk about it, and that is Chris Carson, running back that we drafted back in 2017, all the way in the 7th round. And I gotta say, all he has done when he has been healthy has just produce and produce and produce and be an absolute great bell cow running back. He's had 5 seasons in the NFL. 2 of those seasons, he rushed for over 1,150 yards. He has 24 rushing touchdowns in just 5 seasons. He has massively exceeded his expectations. So why is he being discussed as a cut candidate? Well, you might have noticed that I said when he is healthy. Specifically, he's had a lot of injuries in the past. He missed pretty much his entire rookie season with an injury. He missed a couple of games in 2018 and 2019 and in 2020 when some stupid Dallas player tried to gator roll him, which still think he should have been tossed for a personal foul on that. But either way, he's had a lot of injuries, but he's still managed to be efficient and produce well in the NFL. Until this past season, where it was discovered, or maybe not discovered, but found that he actually has a chronic neck injury. Now, neck injuries, especially in the NFL, are nothing to joke about, and especially with a player who is as physical as Carson at the line of scrimmage, who plays a punishing position like running back. And I think for his safety, the Seahawks should not bring him back for next season. To be honest, and I think Carson should just retire. Because is playing for another year really worth the risk of being completely paralyzed or partially paralyzed going forward? I don't think it's particularly worth it. And it kind of makes me think that when he signed that 2-year deal this past offseason, because I thought he was going to get some more push in free agency, I was kind of wondering why nobody seemed to be picking up Carson, and I think it may have had something to do with that neck injury that supposedly a lot of people knew about, but it was kind of kept hush-hush until I think that game versus San Francisco where he just went out and we never saw him again. So anyway, what sort of cap savings would we be looking at if Carson were to be cut in the offseason? Here he is right at the top. Right now, he is set to make $6,425,000 against the cap next season. I'm still on post-June 1st. Let's go back to pre-June 1st. If you cut him pre-June 1st, he carries with him a $3 million dead cap hit for the season and would give you $3,425,000 in cap savings, which is a pretty decent chunk of cash. Especially that can get you a lot of lower-tier free agents or be combined with a couple of other cuts or restructures to possibly get you a bigger name. Now, if we go to post-June 1st, if you cut him post-June 1st, he would only carry a $1.5 million dead cap hit for this season and would open up almost $5 million in cap savings. So, potentially could look to cut him later in the season or maybe earlier in the season if he chooses to hang up his cleats for good and call it a career. And there's no shame in that. Carson has been nothing but an amazing player and an amazing person for this squad. And if he does end up deciding to retire for his health, I wish him all the best. And on the bright side, with Rashad Penny finally showing that talent that convinced the Seahawks to spend a first-round pick on him in the 2018 draft, I think it's very likely they bring him back in free agency and re-sign him and look to the draft to improve the running back position. Coming in as the fourth cut candidate in this video is none other than Money Myers. Jason Myers, our kicker for the past 3 seasons. So, quick summary. He just finished his 7th year in the NFL. He played 3 years for Jacksonville, 1 year for the Jets, which he made the Pro Bowl. I think he may have been an All-Pro that season. I forget. But anyway, that convinced the Seahawks that they wanted him to be their long-term answer at kicker, so they signed him to a 4-year deal worth $15,450,000. And in the 3 years since the signing, Myers has had one decent season, followed by a season that should have netted him an All-Pro selection. I mean, he was perfect on field goals. He missed a few PATs, but that's kind of expected. Honestly, should have netted him a All-Pro selection. Probably a Pro Bowl selection. And then this past season, he had arguably one of his worst seasons in the NFL. He made just 73.9% of his field goal attempts. He did better on his PAT attempts than his 2020 season, but that's not really anything to be happy about.
This is not the output you would expect from a player who, if we take a look at over the cap, is set to make $5 million against the cap next season. So maybe you find a way to bring him in on a reduced deal, cut him, bring him back for cheaper. Either way, you should paying $5 million to a kicker who didn't even make 75% of his kicks last season is not worth the money. So if we take a look at his bless me. Take a look at his cap hits. It is the last year of his deal, so whether he's cut pre or post June 1st, it'll be the same cap savings. Cutting him would give you $1 million dead cap hit and $4 million in cap savings. More than enough to go out and get a younger, cheaper, more affordable kicker that'll give you kind of the same production. And I mean, I don't think any kicker. And last, and certainly not least, on this cut candidate list, and probably going to be by far and away the most controversial inclusion on this list, is none other than Bobby Wagner. And I can already hear the comments flooding in, like, he's the best linebacker in franchise history. How in the world could you even think of cutting him? Like, he has made, he's made, like, what, 6 All-Pro selections? Dude's insane. He's made the Pro Bowl every single year but one in his career. That's insane. He's arguably the best linebacker in the 2010s. I could see an argument for Luke Kuechly. But aside from that, he's been absolutely and utterly dominant since he's come into the league. He was a critical part of that defense that won us the Super Bowl. But if you've been watching him over the past season or so, I think you'll notice that he's not the big play guy that he used to be. You can see it in the way that he plays the run a lot of the times and is like looking out for making plays. He's less quick. He's not getting to the ball as often. He's not making turnovers. He's getting a ton of tackles. I mean, if he didn't miss the last 2 games this season, he would have broke the single season tackle record. Like, it wouldn't have been close. But this has nothing to do with his production. This has everything to do with 2 things. Number 1 is we drafted Jordan Brooks in the first round 2 seasons ago. And I have to say, like, he was decent in his rookie season, but, like, not really great. But he turned it on his second season. I mean, I know, like, when he got drafted, like, plenty of us were like, how in the world can you draft Jordan Brooks over Patrick Queen? And now that we're, like, 2 seasons in, I'm like, oh, thank God they drafted Jordan Brooks over Patrick Queen. But Jordan Brooks has been playing out of position for the first 2 seasons he's been in the league. He is a middle linebacker. He was drafted to be a middle linebacker. But the thing is, he is not going to play middle linebacker because you have Bobby Wagner sitting in that spot. I think if you move Jordan Brooks to middle linebacker, it's going to cover up a lot of the issues that we've having with him, especially putting him in coverage less and playing to his strengths. Jordan Brooks belongs as a middle linebacker. And he's making way less every single year than Bobby Wagner would be, especially next season. And that leads me into point number 2. Bobby Wagner is due $20,350,000 against the cap next season. As good as Wagner is, he is nowhere near worth that much money. I am all for bringing him back on a reduced deal, but it has to be under the condition that he is not going to be playing middle linebacker anymore. You have to give that to Jordan Brooks, I think, at this point. You drafted Jordan Brooks to be your middle linebacker of the future, and you need to give him a chance to shine in the position that he is most comfortable. Also, cutting Bobby Wagner will give you $16.6 million in cap savings. That money could go out and potentially get you a Chandler Jones or a Von Miller in free agency. Like,
Bobby Wagner is probably going to be one of the greatest players in Seahawks history. He deserves to be enshrined in the Ring of Honor and have his number retired. But he is not worth $20+ million a year. He's making more than any other linebacker in the league next season. So just to kind of show you what I mean, let's take a look at Jordyn Brooks' stats from last season. Played in all 17 games, played pretty much every single defensive snap. 184 combined tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 3 QB hits, a sack, a fumble recovery, 5 pass deflections. He was great. He was living up to his first round grade, and he was doing that while playing out of position. And if we take a look at Bobby Wagner's stat lines, it's pretty similar for the past season. 170 tackles. Granted, also remember that Bobby Wagner missed 2 games. So if he came back, he probably would have had more tackles than Jordyn Brooks. But 170 combined tackles, 3 tackles for loss, not even half of the tackles for loss that Jordyn Brooks had. 3 QB hits, a sack, and an interception. So when you take a look at the both of them, Jordyn Brooks has a ton of upside and has been playing just as good as Bobby Wagner has this past season. And I think it's time you give him a shot in the position where he can shine the brightest. So now that we have made those 5 hard cuts, let's take a look at where we are in this potential offseason scenario cap-wise. So we'll take, what? Oh, I gotta get this right. $36,999,263. The cap savings, and I'm going to be using all the cap savings if this was to be a pre-June 1st cut. All right, cutting Lj Collier saves you $986,323 against the cap. Cutting Benson Mayo saves you $1,510,000. Cutting Chris Carson will save you $3,425,000. Cutting Jason Myers will save you $4 million. And cutting Bobby Wagner would save you $16.6 million against the cap. So if we were just to make those cuts, we would bring our cap space all the way up to $63,520,586. And that does not even take into effect several other cap savings moves that this team could make by either restructuring Russell Wilson or extending him, extending DK Metcalf. You could trim his cap hit down a little bit this offseason. Extending Poona Ford, who, by the way, is in the last year of his deal and is set to make almost $10 million against the cap. So we can make a lot of moves that can open up a lot of cap space and make this offseason a home run for this team, and I cannot wait to see it happen. So that's episode 2. Those are my cut candidates. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. If you liked it, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. If you agree with my cut candidates or you disagree with the cut candidates that I selected, and let's be 100% real, there's going to be more than enough people that disagree. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions down in the comments below. Let's keep the discourse civil because I love talking football with y'all. So again, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, follow for more content, and have a great rest of your week, and go Hawks. Enjoy the Super Bowl.